And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey guys, today we're taking a look at a game called Super Fantasy Ugly Snouts Assault. If you look at the front of the box, it looks like a parody of a dungeon crawl game from Red Glove Games. Now, Red Glove Games is good. I have one of the games on my shelf here, Ristorante Italia, which is a game about building a restaurant. So I was like, okay, good company. And it's a dungeon crawl. There really isn't that many dungeon crawls out there. It may seem like there is, but there's probably less than 20 or 30 of them, and only a few come out every once in a while. But either they're awfully complex, with like Descent, which is a game I really enjoy, but you know, it's not something you can just quick pull out all the time and play. Or sometimes they're really simplistic and not fun. I'm always looking for a game that is like the descendant of Hero Quest. And I said, well, I doubt this is it. In fact, this is probably just a parody game. Let's take a look and see if that's all it is. To play the game, you'll look through here and this mission book and pick a mission that you want to do, and that mission will tell you how to set it up, and you'll be using these tiles to hook together things to make a different mission, maybe connecting them through various ways. And the tiles are decent quality. They could be better, but the artwork is pretty good on them. And you'll be setting up monsters. The monsters have two sides, one so you can see a picture of the monster, and the other so you can see it's a silhouette. That's so you can see the facing of the monster. There's also some spots on the board for terrain, and there's portals. And then there's actually, for some reason, they included this 3D terrain. So you have columns that are in the game. You have barrels that can be smashed open. And so those will be placed around things. Oh, and these little wooden treasure chests, too. So you'll be setting these up, setting up the monsters. And each player will pick a hero of their choice. And then the game begins. Now the hero boards are quite large. You can see here that my hand, I mean, they're much larger than you might imagine. And these hero boards have a lot of things. First of all, on the back is a story of that character and their name. Although, strangely enough, the name is on the back, but there's no name on the front, which can really throw you off sometimes because you want to like call them by their name and you forget and it's too late to flip the board over. This shows their starting equipment over here. This heart here shows hit points. It also, up here is a spot to put shields, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Down here are their stats. Here's your backpack. And then 3 special abilities that a player has. Now what you'll be doing over the course of this game is manipulating your special abilities and doing different things. But before we do that, let me just show you the different characters. Here you have a little girl who's also a dark magician, and here you have your archer. Here's your gigantic barbarian. Then here we have a guy who can shoot 2 different guns, and then you have this fancy dwarf. Now, each character will start with 0 experience. Every time you wound an enemy, or any time that you open a chest or pickpocket, pick a lock on a door, you'll move up here, and every time you reach a number, you'll be able to improve something. And we'll talk about that in a second. But over here on the side, you have your 3 special abilities. Now, when these special abilities reach the top, you'll be able to use them and to blast them off. But before I talk about those special abilities, we need to talk about the main mechanism of the game, which is the dice mechanic. In this game, it comes with 6 dice. And the heroes go first, then the bad guys, then the heroes, etc. The heroes can go in any order they want. And when it's a hero's turn, he will take these 6 dice and he will allocate those dice. Let's say my dwarf is over here in the corner of this room, and I want to do different actions with him. So I will take these dice, these 6 dice, and I will say, first of all, I'm going to use 1 die for movement. And I'll roll that die and use that die to determine how far I can move. And let's say I move close enough to the enemy. I'll say, okay, I'm going to use 3 of the dice to attack him. And then I do that. And then I'll say, I'm going to use 1 more die to move away. So I do that. Then I'll use the last die to try to smash the door down. So there's different things that you can do. Now when you roll the dice, if you roll sword, you get 1 in whatever you're trying to do. So let's say I was trying to move, and I used 2 dice to move. I would have moved 3 spaces by rolling these 2 dice. But you also have stats here. Whenever you roll a star, you will use the number on your stats instead. So if I'm moving and I roll a star and 2 swords, I'll move 3 plus 2, which is 5. If I'm attacking somebody and I roll this, I would get 2 plus 4 my strength, which is 6. Unless, of course, I was using a ranged weapon, in which case I would only have a 3 for aim. Or a magic weapon, in which case I'd only have a 3. If I was trying to unlock a treasure chest, I would use cunning. If I was defending against an enemy attack, my defense, I would use defense. And so this is a really neat mechanism here, because the stars represent what you're trying to do here. Now, one of the things that you can also do, you can move, you can try to open a door, you can try to pick a lock, you can try to smash a barrel open to get something inside it, or open a treasure chest, or fight monsters, etc. One of the things you can do is you can also try to pump up your special abilities. Now, every time you roll a star, you can move one up anyway. So you will be moving these up pretty quickly, because you should hopefully be rolling at least 2 stars every turn that you go. But you can also pick one of these, roll the die, and move one of them up that many swords, or if it's a star, you use your magic ability. Once it's at the top, you can use that special ability by making it go all the way to the bottom and doing whatever it says. So the dwarf here, he can activate this ability during an attack to give him plus 3 attack. He also has a dwarven jump, because dwarves don't like to be thrown, they prefer to jump. So you can move in a straight line up to 3 squares, ignoring all the block zones. And then here, he can make, you can use this ability. After attack's completed, you can immediately make another one using 2 extra dice. Well, that's great. But remember I showed you the experience track at the top? Whenever you get to a number in that experience track, you can pick one of your abilities and make it go up to the next level. So for example, this is No Tomorrow Attack 1, which lets me make an extra attack with 2 extra dice. This one here lets me make it 2 extra dice plus 1 strength. And then I can upgrade it again later to No Tomorrow Attack 3. I can use one with 3 extra dice and 1 strength. Up here, that dwarven jump, where I can jump 3 squares, ignoring all block zones. By the way, a block zone is basically just, you can move without worrying about, are you next to an enemy or not. So dwarven jump 2 lets me do that same thing, and then a plus 2 attack against the monster that I landed in. Or a plus 5 attack, so I can jump right into someone and do a 5 attack. And then of course the more basic one, this blunt bazooka, when it upgrades, it starts here as a plus 3 attack. If I go up to 2, it's a plus 6, and if I go to blunt bazooka 3, it's a plus 9 attack. So you can see that these special abilities are really cool. Also, as the game progresses, you might find treasure chests, and in these treasure chests, you might find other weapons and things that you can use. Now, some of these weapons and armor, like this enchanted armor, will be placed down here. You can stick something in your backpack. You may not be able to use it. There's different things. I might decide, instead of using this, I'll add a shield to my defense, or maybe, hopefully, I will find a better weapon like this Viper here. If a 12 or more with a single attack does an extra damage, which is pretty cool. Now, if you don't use all your dice on one of your turn, you can use some of those and set them aside, and instead take little shield tokens. These tokens, which come from a bag of tokens, these are used for life points and counters, and these are entirely too small. I'll be replacing them in my game with something else. But you can use these shield tokens, and then you can use those when the enemy is attacking you on their turn. Each mission comes with a page that shows the enemies in that mission. And the enemies will also be rolling a die on their turn. You'll be using this die for different things. The enemies in each room are basically asleep, but there's a possibility that they are awakened. The enemies also might have the ability to go through a door. If you look here, for example, these gentlemen here, the big snouts, they will go through a door if they roll this. You can also see there's a color strip here in enemies. That shows who they attack first. If there is a problem on who to attack, they'll attack the character who is red first, which happens to be the big, bad barbarian dude. It also shows their stats, their movement, their hit points, what stars are worth when the enemy rolls them, their attack and defense. And there's 2 different levels here. You can play an easier level or a hard level, and then also maybe some special abilities of these characters. So each round that the enemies go, you will be moving them kind of like program movement, where they will come basically and attack you if their room wakes up. and then players will take their turns again. There's also portals in the game, like I said, and the number of creatures that come out of a portal depends on the number of players who are playing the game, and then what symbol you roll on the monster dice. This will continue until the players have all died. Well, dying is a little bit different. When players die, they simply get a timeout. They're just out that round and they'll come back. But every time a player dies, you'll move this red marker 1. See, this red marker will start on a number depending on how many players you're playing the game with. So let's say maybe this mission, if I'm playing with 2 players, it starts at 18, while if I'm playing with 6 players, it starts at 14. Every time a round is over, you move one like this. If you haven't accomplished your goal by the time the black number meets the red number, then the players have lost. So every time a player dies, that makes the game that much harder, or dies, takes a timeout for the heroes, and at the same time, you can't just sit around and wait. You have to keep moving so that you can beat the monsters. So that's how you play the game. There's also a mode where you can play competitively against the other players, like a battle match arena type situation, and there you go. Now, I bet you watched some of those mechanisms and you said, that's pretty cool. You're right. It is really cool. This game is great. Now, if I did have a knock against it, a lot of stand-up cardboard. I know it's very expensive to produce miniatures, but we're getting kind of spoiled these days. I would have loved to have miniatures. And even I have to say, I know they tried to go a different route, because we do always say, well, it's the same old goblins and stuff. Having everyone wear the different tribal masks as the bad guys got confusing after a while as to which was which. I don't know. But whatever. Some of the components are really cool. Those pyramids and the pillars and the barrels, and oh, it's so great. I mean, if they came out with an expansion that had miniatures, fantastic. But forget all that for a while. Let's talk about the mechanisms of this. Woo! Good! I mean, the dice allocation thing is great. It is such a cool idea to be able, instead of saying, on your turn, you can move once and attack once, or you can attack twice, or you can move and attack twice. No, you have 6 dice. Use them how you want. You can move a little, attack, move a little, attack, and move a little. Pretty cool. Or you can just not move at all and use all your dice in one giant attack. That is certain to succeed. We hope. It's great. Lots of fun. And the way each of the 6 characters in here is completely different on how they feel. The one guy's that there's like 2 tanks, I guess, but one tank is just, he can take the damage, does some cool stuff. Another guy can take less damage, but he can deal it out. That's the one I showed you, the dwarf. Then you have the ranged guy who can shoot stuff all over the board, the archer, the magicians, the thief who can come in and pick pockets and pick locks. I like the fact you can get to a door. Let's say you're making a door test. You need a 6 on a door test. So you have to decide, how many dice am I going to roll? And what kind of door test? You can try to smash the door down. Strength, no problem. I'll roll 2 dice. My strength is 4. Hopefully I'll roll 2 stars. And you roll 2 1s. You're like, ah! So there's always that, there's that thing. But you can smash the door down, or you can pick the lock, in which case you use a different stat. And so there's this, it's really cool how all these things work together. Smashing those barrels open. So one player I played with said, I just want to smash barrels. How many games lets you do that? And in those barrels you find like small items that are one-time use, like potions and things. It's cool. There's really a lot of game in this box. I was very surprised and very pleased. This, to me, is a Hero Quest successor. It really is. It's not, as complex it's not as good as Descent in a sense, because I love Descent. I love going into this great storyline. You can level up and do cool things. Here you're leveling up in the game, and this actually has a stronger feel to Gauntlet, the video game, because the little weenies keep coming out of these holes and these portals, and you kill them, but you're trying to kill the big bad ones too, and finish the quest. So it's good. It looks silly. Component quality could be a little bit better, but don't skip it for those reasons. There's a lot of cool ideas in this box. It is a great little game. Super fantasy, ugly snouts assault. Weird name also, but fun.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.